and welcome back to another Just 5 Mins. I'm afraid it's more MCP. You're probably going to be hearing a lot of this, and I'm sure you probably have. Model Context Protocol. So, I think I did an episode 122 a few weeks ago, actually, about the sort of basics around MCP. But just to recap, MCP, Model Context Protocol, the giveaways protocol, a bit like, I suppose, gRPC or even HTTP. It's a protocol standard that Anthropic, so the people who make Claude and all of those good things, they came out with it, and it's a clever move actually, because it's been adopted by a lot of the main players, including OpenAI. I think I mentioned that before, because even though OpenAI had things like you could create your own custom GPTs, they were sort of very specific to that environment. And even though the OpenAPI sorry, not OpenAPI, OpenAI API is sort of also become a little bit of a standard way. So all of these other AI tools have got a similar AI to be able to connect to. I mean, that was a good move to do that. But with MCP, Anthropic thought, well, hang on a minute, rather than just having an API to talk to the AI, what about sort of custom GPTs, but being able to write your own, completely separate from whatever the platform is. So in other words, you can plug this into different AIs. It could be ChatGPT, it could be Claude, it could be Gemini, it could be whatever you want it to be. And so MCP, I think it was back end of last year, 2024. So we're in April, almost, mid-April 2025. And of the time of this recording going out anyway. And so the idea is that MCP standard, so it's not an application of itself. It is a standard that people can implement. And there are already so many of these MCP server sort of websites and stuff like that. I mean, basically, you've got everything connecting to databases to do that. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Having an AI have full access sometimes, to your database or to your whatever, your file system. So like everything, you can instantly have the reaction of, oh dear, you can just see the tears and, everything sort of exploding. But like everything, it's like a tool is a tool. It could be used to, bad things or good things. So I think it is actually a really good thing. And then the conversation of this podcast really is to do with Microsoft. So they've partnered with Anthropic, and by the way, OpenAI have already adapted their infrastructure to work with MCP as well, which is good because it sort of shows that we're hopefully moving away from those walled gardens a little bit at least. And so Microsoft have teamed up with them, and sure enough, they've got a preview version at the moment of the MCP C# SDK for .NET. So I've had a play with it. So, I mean, in reality, there's three segments to this. You've got a host, which is things like Claude Desktop, VS Code. So this is where, if you really want to get very clever, things like Windsurf, Cursor AI, and all those sorts of lovely things, Klein, and goodness knows what, you can in agent mode now, because VS Code and lots of these, well, that's what Windsurf and Cursor AI are doing. They've got agent mode enabled, and in VS Code, even the full version, not even just the insiders version, if you upgrade to the latest version, it's now got obviously agent mode, and actually it's got GPT 4.1 as a preview, which has only just been released, I believe, from OpenAI. So apparently it's better at coding. I thought Anthropic Claude was actually very good for coding tasks, but anyway, we'll see. But the point being is, anyway, a ramble as usual, but this is to do with the fact that if you've got .NET, by the way, obviously there's already, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of other options. You can use TypeScript, you can use Rust, you can use Python, of course, Java, no doubt. You could use, there's already, because again, it's not just an application. It's a protocol methodology that obviously you can basically implement in whatever language you want. It's just that obviously Microsoft have jumped on the bandwagon, pretty quickly, which is understandable, and presented a nice sort of SDK, which is it's still in preview, so there's going to be some changes, but so far it's okay. So like I said, you've got those three segments: a host, which has to be where is that thing calling from, and the host, by the way, could be an application that you write as well, but the classic ones is where you've already got the chat interface, like in VS Code or Claude Desktop or Gemini Desktop or something like that. But again, you could write that host, okay, but then you end up with essentially a client that, because the whole point of this MCP is that it's client server, so it's got a one-to-one relationship with the client server, okay. So the client is how it actually talks to the MCP server, and really the MCP server is generally going to be a lightweight little application, okay. Doesn't have to be, could be fairly complex maybe, but that's the idea, is that you've got this client that sits inside the host. Let's use VS Code as the example because that's the classic one. So VS Code in GitHub Copilot, for instance, or any of these other chat interfaces, the idea is when you declare an MCP server tool, you can give it a description. In fact, you can give it a little bit more information, but the description usually is enough. And the client, the actual MCP client, so when you're typing in, say, GitHub Copilot or something, you'll notice it can discover, there's a way of registering these, by the way, but it can discover that you've got tools available. And by the description, when you create the MCP server tool, it being the AI, the model, the LLM, will be able to determine, oh, hang on a minute, you're mentioning something like reverse this string or something silly like that, or go and summarize my database, tables or something like that, or whatever. And the idea is that that's where the MCP bit comes in, because it's got that protocol methodology to go and look and say, well, okay, you've got these descriptions on these tools. I think what the user has typed in matches this, and it'll go and basically it won't just execute the tool. You can, of course, put it into, say, always execute mode, but you might not want to do that initially. And so the idea is that you will then get a little prompt saying, would you like, I found this tool that does this. Do you want to execute it? Yes. And off it goes. And it calls into your tool. Now, the one that I've created, because it's just an example that they've got on the MCP SDK website, is where it's basically using DIO. So it's standard input output server, which is this is for local tools. So there's the other aspect of this. You've got local tools and you can have remote tools. But basically the server bit, that's what that relates to. So you can have a local server little application, or you can have a remote server application. So I've got another example where I'm using Azure Functions with MCP, but of course it's actually remote. It's up in the cloud. So that MCP server could do other stuff that it's got access to cloud things. Excuse me. But again, you know, it's like you could be given all these tools, and you can obviously make mistakes. You can open up security holes, etc. But as long as you're careful, which isn't that the case with everything? It's a famous phrase, isn't it? Yeah, you can see where obviously if it's connecting to all of these things like databases and goodness knows what, you've got to be a little bit careful. But the idea is you could write an MCP server that executes a very specific query to do some summarization, for instance. So when you're in your chatbot and you say, tell me the latest blah, 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 whatever summary, it's only going to be able to run that specific query. Now, there are MCP servers that connect to like Postgres, Microsoft SQL, whatever, where they can also insert data to a table. Now, that obviously, that's where you've got to use some, you know, pretty good common sense and make sure what you're actually dealing with is legit and all the rest of it. But I think the whole concept of this is giving that democracy to connect to other things, because obviously using not necessarily the server side one, but the STDIO, the standard input output one for local access. Sure, you can then access your local file system or local whatever. Now, again, with the right framing of that, there's some amazing things that you'd be able to do. But like everything, you know, with great power comes, what is it? Great responsibility. So you've got to look into all of this stuff. But anyway, the point being is that Microsoft have teamed up with Anthropic to build like an official MCP SDK. So far it looks pretty good. Like I said, it's in preview at the moment. There are lots of other implementations out there. So if .NET's not your favorite, go and have a look. There's hundreds, if not probably thousands by now, sort of implementations in practically all different languages that you can think of as well. But I think personally, I think it's a good move because it gives you those custom GPTs that we saw develop out of OpenAI, you know, ChatGPT and everything. But it takes it abstracts it out for any type of AI and any type of host as well. You're not just limited to VS Code. Like I said, it could be Claude Desktop, Gemini, you know, desktop or whatever they call it. You can build your own applications that become the host. And the client is just a way to interact from the LLM to then communicate through to your MCP server. So there's lots of advantages, and it means that you're not locked into one platform, one technology. And I can see some quite amazing things. I can see some, you know, absolute train crashes as well, obviously, if people aren't really aware of what they're actually doing. But I can see a lot of good advantages with this. So anyway, that's what I've got. I think I'm probably going to do a little video of how this works and how this looks. I'll publish that maybe in about a week or so. So yeah, that's what I've got for this time. So have a good day, a good week, and we'll catch you on the next one.